personal finances, I always say that it's your responsibility. And I think a week ago I was advising that Christmas, just spend what you have. But remember that January you still live. So you then have to plan it in such a way that you always want to leave some money for January. More especially, why do I say that? People that might have been tempted to use their credit card in December to do the Boxing Day sales and other things, the bills will come in January. So you then have to set some money aside to make those payments.
But in this situation, this person has already spent everything, and what should he be doing right now? Where should he turn to? Should he go to the employer? Should he go to family and friends? That is, if they are even willing to give. How should that person who is cash trapped or whatever, what should that person be doing right now?
Well, I always say that if it is money that is for your upkeep and for other things and not for major commitments and other things, the first place to start with is maybe your employer, if that opportunity is there to borrow from your employer. Why do I say that? Because the cost of borrowing from your employer, it's always at a concessionary rate. You don't really pay the real cost of the funds, because they might be looking at it as part of your benefits that they are giving you. But that said, if that opportunity is not there and the expenditures or the commitments that you have to meet are life-threatening and they are critical, then you might have to look for a financial institution to take the money from. But coming to that also, you just have to then maybe go to your bankers, and if you've kept a good credit history, they might be able to help you out. Or you look out for maybe these finance houses and savings and loans who do personal loans. Those who do payroll lending might be people that you can easily walk to and get some comfort or some relief to take you through. But the other side of it is also that you must always have at the back of your mind, how are you going to pay for this? It should not be something that becomes a cycle every year, that it's like you've taken it and then come next year, it's like you find yourself in the same loop again. It should be something that you've paid off, then you plan better for the year coming. Like
an emergency loan, one would ask that how should you go about it? Because there's always the fear that I'll be exploited. This is not something I planned for. It's a short-term loan. I have to rush to that institution to take that loan. What should I be looking out for so that I'm not exploited, I'm not charged more than the market rate, the conditions are also good and favorable to me?
When it comes to borrowing, I always come down to it that it depends on the amount of money that you are taking, and it depends on the nature of the facility, whether it's secured or it's unsecured. What I mean secured means that what collateral are you putting out there to back up the funds that you've taken, and unsecured is where you don't have anything to show up. It's like based on purely good faith that you pay the money. Unsecured borrowing is always pricey, because I mean there's no fallback for the lender. And that said, you shop around looking at the prices of the cost of funds that you have. If you go to some institutions, their lending might be within the region of maybe 30 to 35%. Some might be within the region of 40, 45%. Some might even be in the region of 60% and other things. And it all comes down to you shopping around and knowing where to go to. But I always say that when it comes to financial planning, I believe that you should have a fallback line of credit with an institution that you can always run to. I tell people that
when it comes to emergency loans,
you should have planned ahead of schedule to say that, bankers, you know what, I don't need money now, but can you give me an overdraft line that in case I need maybe X amount of money, I can fall on that on a rainy day. And because my salary comes through here, or because my income comes through here, I can always pay. But where you don't have that in place, then it means that given the circumstances and given the conditions, you might have to pay through the roof a little, because it's like you need the money every now and then. And in most instances where you get the turnaround being short also, it comes at a cost. The pricing of the loan or the facility to you, you have to pay for that speed or that efficiency that is coming with it. So it all comes down to having an array. It's just like when you go to the market to go and buy things, you shop around for prices a little. You ask, so if I take this amount of money from this place, how much is it going to cost me? If I take it from this place, how much is it going to cost me? What are the conditions attached to it? And then that will help you make a better decision.
Okay. It is. Now let's move to the bit about managing your personal finances. And it is argued, it is said that if you fail to plan, you're bound to fail or whatever going forward. For that individual again, how should I plan my finances for this year so that things doesn't get worse? We always say this, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. But for that individual who is very risky even in getting a loan, how should you start things January so that you don't end the year being broke as an individual?
It's good that we are talking about this the first day of the year. It all comes down to what I call budgeting or putting down. And when I say budgeting, people sometimes think it's a rocket science. It's just a guide to say that I'm going to be setting aside X amount of money every month, or if you earn money on a weekly basis, every week I'm going to be spending, let's say, 10% of my earnings, I'm going to be putting it aside. And you see, once you do it with that ease, and psychologists have come up with this, I'll say this hypothesis, which says that if you're able to do something 21 times, you've acquired the skill. You've acquired, the flexibility, the nature. It becomes a second nature to be able to do it. It's always difficult to start something, but when you start it, and this morning I've spoken to a friend on a program where we were talking about even you can start with a money box. Setting money aside is a personal thing or a personal responsibility that you have to do. And if you don't start it, like you alluded to, you are failing to plan. And if you are failing to plan, it means that you are planning to fail. So it will come back, and it's a cycle which you might be going through every night.
You think that budgeting is very critical? You need to plan.
It is needed in every aspect. Why do I say that? Look at institutions that have been around for over 100 years. One of the core things that you will see is that they have policies, they have documentation, they have plans. Some spans 10 years, some span 5 years, some span 3 years. It comes down to being able to document your income and being able to document your expenditure. By that, you then be able to know how much you are spending and how much you are also earning. And then the surplus that comes as a result of looking at your income and your expenditure will determine the savings and the investment culture that will come out of that.
But some say that it's all about the discipline, right? How do you get it right in terms of the financial discipline? So I take like 100 cedis maybe every week as I said, okay, every day I'm going to set aside 10 Ghana cedis. I get to Thursday and I said, oh, it's weekend, let me spend a little bit. Oh, forget about that. After Monday again, I'll do it. Now, from there, you move to Monday, you don't put some aside. Tuesday, you don't put some aside. How do you get around this whole budgeting and even the savings culture bit that you have to do it? How do you inculcate that habit that it's a must do, it's a no? I used to do some small box in the house. There are days when I do 50 Ghana cedis a day. There are days when I don't do it.
It all comes down to what you alluded to. But there's the resilience that the individual comes to or brings to the fore in financial planning is critical. In some days, you might have more money than you could think, because maybe somebody gave you a gift or somebody gave you something. In some days, because of some emergencies and other things that have come up, you don't have money. But it all comes down to keeping to the consistency, coming back to it. You don't say that, oh, I'm not able to do it for a particular day, so I've thrown in the towel. Even if you miss a month, you can always come back. It's a resilience with which you attach to your financial planning, and that is where the discipline comes in. I always look at life in the lens of soccer. That's you go out there, you want to win. But if you don't win, or you lose, or you draw, it doesn't mean that you've given up. The next match, you plan what? To win. And it's like you keep at it, you keep at it. Even clubs that are losing on losing streak, they keep playing with a view that they will win. So when it comes to financial planning, it comes down to the same thing. It should not be rocket science. It should not be something that should inconvenience you. You should be able to bring back that resilience to say that, okay, I missed out on X number of days, but I am back. I want to do it. And that's what I think we need in the coming year.
What are some of the expenditure items that you should avoid as an individual? You have a situation where people want to buy everything, but they don't need it. What are some of those things that you should avoid in terms of expenditure so that it can help you save?
Well, it varies from an individual to an individual. You cannot have a straight jacket for people. I always say that the reason why you cannot have a straight jacket for people is that our needs are different. Our wants are different. But it all comes down to getting a laundry list of all the things that you plan to have this year. And then you take maybe your pencil or your pen and look at, are these necessary? Can I do without this? Can I live with this? Or these are life-threatening, I must meet, or it's a must-do. So once you do that, you find out that the list might become shorter. So then you have eliminated all the things that you really don't, need it. And also the other question that comes in is, what is the cost? Can I afford it? The things that you cannot afford immediately will have to be put in what I call in the freezer for another period. It doesn't mean that you've thrown them away. But each and every one or every individual will have to sit down with his own list of things. Other than that, it's like if I sit here and I say, oh, okay, you don't need a car. Well, you know you need a car. But the question is that the car that you need, is it just for a means of transportation or is it a status symbol? If it's a status symbol, it depends on what you need it for. I tell people that there are some places that when you are going to visit, you might want to show a status symbol that I am coming in maybe a Mercedes, I'm coming in a Jaguar, I'm coming in a BMW. But if it's just a means of transport, a decent vehicle will do. But if it's for other purposes like the status symbol, or you want to impress people, then it comes at with different mindsets. So you cannot make it a straight jacket thing. But the basic thing is that what need am I purporting that the thing that I'm acquiring is going to meet? If it's just basic, get it. But if it's just something which is luxury and you cannot afford it, take it out of your list. That's what I would say. Thank you.
It was a very challenging year for the industry. We had a lot of safety issues. We also had the prevalence of illegal products on the market that affected genuine operators, negatively. And by and large, it's been challenging, but we thank God that we've been able to survive. One major issue that it has impacted our operations negatively is the fire explosion, at Atomic Junction, because safety is critical in our industry. And so when you have such, major, issues of safety coming up, it then whips up, some negative sentiments against the industry. And rightly so, because people have gone through some traumatizing moments. And of course, it came with government also taking some, drastic measures. And those measures somehow have affected our operations. But it's to be expected because when emotions are high, you would expect that there will be some, reactions. So I think that's one thing I would say has impacted our operations. Because mind you, when that happened, government suspended licensing, and even projects that we had almost completed were stopped from being permitted to start operations. And obviously, if you had acquired facilities from the bank and invested in projects that were duly licensed or duly granted permits, by the regulatory authorities, based upon which you took a facility from the bank, you obviously will go through some difficulties, because Ghanaian banks, they are not the type of banks that you can sit down and renegotiate your facilities with them, because their financial standing is not that strong for them to say, because of this, don't do your repayment, wait till 1 year. You don't get that from Ghanaian banks, and so you would have to still be servicing the facility even when you are not working as a business. Given the magnitude of the issue, you would expect that sometimes there are some reactions which, as an industry, it's understandable. Of course, upon hindsight, I believe that even the regulators themselves will reflect and say that if they were perhaps sober, some of the things they may have toned down a bit. But I can understand. Because it's you can relate it. You can relate it to your own life. If there's a problem, you are running. Sometimes you even forget about your personal belongings. So sometimes when these things happen, people react in a way only to realize that, oh, this thing we could have been a bit more reasoned. As an industry, there was an anxiety among our members, especially those who are solely into LPG. But I think we've made progress. And so I don't want to, belabor the point, because the ministry says that we should work together and fashion out the policy and see how we can implement it. Bottom line is safety. This industry, you cannot want to operate in this industry and not be committed to safety. Because, would you want to kill your consumers? So we are committed to that. So to the extent that there's this understanding that we should work together and fashion out a model that will ensure that there's safety and also ensure that the consumer gets the product. I think deregulation, within the context of its implementation as a policy, is not bad at all. You see, yes, you may have the cedi depreciating, but you'd notice that in recent times, the increment is always minimal. Unlike in previous years when you would wait and see 20%, 30%, increase. That's this, automatically, distorts your finances. So that aspect, I think, collectively as a country, I think that's the way to go. However, what is affecting industry is that you have a system whereas others are going by the deregulation policy and doing the genuine thing, some other people are allowed to flout the rules and evade taxes, because the tax component of the ex-pump price that the consumer pays is about 50% of the cost. So meanwhile, the OMC's margin is just about 5%. So if someone evades the tax, it means the person can lower his price, and still make significant, profit. So the genuine operator, even if the genuine operator gives all his margin, that 5%, he cannot compete with the person who has, evaded the taxes. So if government enforces that and makes sure that the security agencies, arrest people who are evading taxes and distorting, the market, then I think we'll all be fine with deregulation. 2018, number one, safety. Number 2, safety. Number 3, safety. Because this industry is not an industry that you just go in without understanding its implications. Petroleum products are highly flammable. And so any operator that wants to get into this industry must understand that he must place safety as a topmost priority. And that is why those of us who are committed to safety, we keep saying that do not allow other people who are not committed to safety do not license them in the first place. Again, assuming you license an operator and that operator is not adhering to safety regulations, revoke the license. It's as simple as that.
So the implementation.
The implementation.
Okay.
So safety. That's, for us, I think is the way to go, into it. As a company, we have told ourselves that growth has to be organic. Growth has to be such that we can manage the growth. You see, it's not every expansion that is real growth. It could be tumor. So any company that is just seeing growth, expansion, and not looking at the systems that it is putting in place to ensure that that growth is real and sustainable is heading, to hit its head on the wall. And so into 2018, we want to ensure that we maximize the infrastructure that we already have. One, yes, we will do some bit of expansion, but measured expansion, within our strengths, and also ensuring that as we expand, we're able to monitor, we're able to manage our operations, and we're able to ensure that there's safety, because there's no point in expanding when you cannot guarantee the safety of, one, your employees, and 2, your consumers and the larger community. My final message is that we should work as a team, because petroleum products have become vital for our everyday operation. In fact, there's currently no country that I know of that operates without the use of petroleum products. So, which means that it has become part and parcel of our life. So, what that means is that as operators, we would endeavor to improve upon our, safety aspect of our operations. At the same time, we would want to seek the support of the community that do not lump all operators together and think all of us are operating in unsafe manner. No, because some of us invest so much in safety because we go through rigorous processes to construct fuel stations. We go through rigorous processes to make sure that, we serve you the product in safe manner. And so whenever there's an accident somewhere, do not panic and begin to brand all other fuel stations as, time bombs. What you have to do is to find out from the regulatory agencies, because they do regular inspections and they have records of stations that have, top-notch safety measures in place. And so once you check with the regulatory agencies and you are sure that the necessary safety measures have been put in place, rest assured and patronize the facility, because we are there to serve the community, and that's our business. So let's work together, going forward.